It is time to defend Marvel's The Eternals. Hello, welcome back to Geek Vibes Nation. I'm Tia, your content manager, and I wanted to take this time to talk about 2001's The Eternals, directed by Chloe Zhao. The Eternals starred Gemma Chan, Richard Madden, Kumail Nanjiani, Leah McHugh, Brian Tyree Henry, Lauren Ridloff, Barry Keoghan, Don Lee, Kit Harington, Salma Hayek, and Angelina Jolie. Marvel's The Eternals was very highly anticipated. Obviously, it's a Marvel movie, and the first trailers for The Eternals was met with positivity all around. It looked beautiful. It looked like something that none of us had ever seen before. And personally, I was very excited. Now, when the movie came out, it didn't do the best review wise, which was very shocking to me, again, considering that the trailers made it out to look really beautiful. It looked completely different. And this was essentially my first realization that anything that didn't kind of go with the Marvel formula was going to be met negatively for the most part. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the Marvel formula as someone who has been a fan since Iron Man came out in 2008. I've always really enjoyed Marvel movies for the most part. And I even have enjoyed phase four for the most part, even though I can criticize a lot of what we've seen in Disney Plus shows. But besides that, I think that we're going to always hit a little bit of a snag when it comes to the fact that phase four has a lot of new characters that we're not used to. We lost a lot of characters after Endgame, but I was very excited for the Eternals because I liked the ensemble cast that they had. I enjoyed what I saw in the trailers. And overall, I really enjoyed the movie. It was very different than what we've seen. It's not an Avengers type of movie, which maybe people were trying to see when they think an ensemble cast that's about to go crazy. It was definitely different. Chloe Zhao is more known for her independent films. Prior to the Eternals, she has only worked on a few films. I'm pulling that up right now. Prior to being brought on for the Eternals, some of her films were Helen's First Date in 2 Years, Post, The Atlas Mountains, Simple Pleasures, Daughters, and Bena Chen, which were short films. And the feature films that she did before Eternals were Songs My Brothers Taught Me, The Rider, and Nomadland. Right? Yeah, Nomadland. Nomadland. Wow. Can't talk today. So she definitely comes into the mix with maybe not as big as a portfolio as other directors, but I think it was her work on independent films that really made the Eternal shine. The visuals were absolutely gorgeous. I very much enjoyed seeing the backstory of all these characters from the Eternals, how they've been around for so long, what their mission in the world and on Earth even was, and how they even came to love the humans. I really enjoyed that. I mean, I think that the film definitely took some chances. There were a lot of deaths in the film that were unexpected when you have a film that's supposed to be introducing a bunch of new characters. You think that a lot of them are going to move forward, but that didn't happen. I think they really explored a lot of interesting stuff. Angelina Jolie in the movie as Thena definitely had an interesting role. Salma Hayek had a really great role. I mean, they to me were all really good. I enjoyed Don Lee as Gilgamesh. Certainly some of the standouts were Barry Keoghan as Droog, Lauren Ridloff as Makari. And let's talk about Makari for a second. She is the speedster in the mix, and I really enjoyed how they showed her being a speedster as opposed to characters like the Flash in DC, or even like characters as Quicksilver in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. To me, the biggest standout, well, to me, the characters that I was the most excited for were Richard Madden as Icarus just because I'm absolutely a huge Richard Madden fan, not only from Game of Thrones, but his work as in the Netflix series Bodyguard. And I liked his relationship with Gemma Chan. I liked their past and all that. Um, and it really was interesting in the film that Richard Madden's character, Icarus, spoiler alert, essentially ended up betraying them in the end. That was certainly a twist that I didn't see coming. And even though even though I was a little upset that, again, spoiler alert, he died at the end of the movie, so that means we won't have any more of Richard Madden as Icarus in the MCU. It was still a good twist. It was still a good catalyst for Gemma Chan's character. Gemma Chan's character as Cersei, it was a good catalyst for her getting her powers and really shining through that. I don't really know what people's gripe with the Eternals are. It seems that people dislike that out of Phase 4 more than they disliked Black Widow, which is another movie that I think gets unnecessary hate. But I just didn't understand why the Eternals did get the hate it did. Again, it maybe wasn't like your typical Marvel movie. It wasn't an Avengers type of movie, but I mean, just the contained story of these characters. I mean, some of the fighting in this movie were effing phenomenal. The costumes were beautiful. I mean, if I have to do one critique of what I'm thinking in Phase 4 and even the beginning of Phase 5 in Marvel, is that there seems to be a decline in the costuming that we didn't see prior to Avengers Endgame. But that certainly cannot be said for the Eternals. Their costumes were absolutely gorgeous, did not look cheap or anything like that. And to me, I thought that this movie looked like something that everyone loved really doing. The way that the actors talked about it behind the scenes, the way that they even move on camera, they really seemed quite passionate about doing this project with someone like Chloe Zhao. Um, I thought it was really nice. I thought it was a great movie, and let's see some of the criticism with the Eternals and see if we can kind of combat that a little, because again, it just never made sense to me. I mean, so for one criticism, right, this comes from the direct. They're saying that the action choreography was dull and the visuals are bland. As I just said right off the bat, I think that they're completely wrong. I think that the choreography was beautiful and that the visuals were stunning. Um, Saying that there's no emotional hook or characters to kind of attach to, I think that's also a little disingenuous. Again, I think that people are just too used to the characters that we had, like Tony Stark, Captain America, and maybe having this as the first movie, you sit there and say, well, I just got introduced to these characters, so why should I develop an emotional connection with them? Which also seems a little silly because there are plenty of one-off movies that we have attachments to, even just seeing them for one movie. I mean, the reason why Loki is so popular is because we all got emotionally attached to him within the first movie. If I go to the subreddit Marvel Studios, I do see other people kind of discussing why it got hate when other people really liked it. And there are certain things talking about how it was choppy. I didn't really think that. I've seen Eternals twice now. I didn't really get this feeling of it being choppy. Obviously, it kind of cuts a lot because it's literally doing 1,000 years worth of storytelling within one movie. So I think maybe I can get behind that criticism a little. Maybe if this stretched between two movies, we would have gotten scenes that were able to be fleshed out more. I think we also need to understand that this movie was, I believe, filmed during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm sure that there were a lot of things that needed to change because of that. And I think if I also remember correctly, they had to stop filming at some point because they were literally filming on like an active volcano or something like that. But don't quote me on it. Other people kind of felt that the characters' moods were all over the place. I mean, um, again, I don't remember that totally, but if I have to say that they again were like a few thousand years old, and these were all essentially siblings to each other, even though then there was obviously romances between some of them, but they were essentially siblings with each other, the Eternals. So I mean, wouldn't you get a little pissy with your siblings from time to time? um I think people, and someone here says that Eternals is different than the MCU formula. It didn't have necessarily the ultimate villain, and that is true. I mean, Richard Madden's Icarus really isn't a villain. He is someone who had his own reasonings for doing what he did, and that obviously felt like a huge betrayal against the other members of the Eternals. But he wasn't this huge villain. He certainly wasn't doing things for any sort of selfish or egotistical reason. So that could have felt very jarring for people. But I would argue and say that there have been a lot of Marvel movies that haven't had a direct huge villain. One of the biggest things to me is Ant-Man and the Wasp. As much as I really liked that movie, there really wasn't a huge villain. I mean, even the character Ghost really wasn't a villain in the end. So I felt as if there were a few Marvel movies that ended up just not having a villain. So to say that the Eternals not having a villain is really a huge detriment to the movie, I don't mind that. I mean, Marvel has always kind of had a problem with their villains and killing off their villains very quickly. So I mean, you can say that if Richard Madden's Icarus is the villain, that they kind of followed the Marvel formula there in killing him off. Let's look at some other criticisms for the Eternals and see if we can kind of understand why people did not like this movie. And I don't mean to call out the direct for their criticism if that's the way they felt, if that's the way the person who saw that movie felt. I mean, everyone obviously is allowed to have their own opinion. The one thing that I will say that if you don't like a movie, then you don't like a movie. I've not liked movies that other people have enjoyed. So not trying to call them out specifically for that. People also didn't like, it seems, one creator said that they didn't like that the deviants essentially weren't really the villains. I mean, those were supposed to be the creatures that the Eternals have been fighting for thousands of years. And when you find out essentially that the Eternals were also created by Arisem, and the reasoning that they were essentially created, and you realize that Arishem, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, that was the actual bad guy, and that the Eternals and the Deviants essentially were just created to play a role. I found that incredibly interesting. I found that to be an incredibly interesting twist, and a bigger commentary there of two sides fighting, not even really knowing why they're fighting, just following something else. I mean, I thought that there was a huge commentary there. So um I'm not trying to make this video any longer than it needs to be. The defense that I want to have for the Eternals is more of a personal opinionated one. I like the story, I like the characters. I am interested to see where things move forward. Kit Harington is another Game of Thrones alum. He played Jon Snow, and people are really excited for him to come into the mix, come into Marvel, and he will be playing the Black Knight moving forward. He didn't really have a huge role in this movie. His role is more so in the post credits to kind of tease what will happen with his character moving forward. I think that there was a lot of different theories that he's going to turn up in the upcoming Blade movie, but maybe if you were hoping that he would have more of a role, you were a little disappointed by that. I really wasn't. As much as I am a Game of Thrones fan and I like Jon Snow, I was definitely more interested in Richard Madden as Icarus. So I want to say that I definitely got out of the movie what I wanted to get out of the movie. Gemma Chan was amazing. Angelina Jolie was amazing. Selma Hayek was amazing. So, and even the little bits of humor there were kind of funny. I just enjoyed the characters as a whole. I want a sequel. I want to see where they go. And let's not forget that they literally brought in Harry Styles, which is very interesting. I mean, I don't really listen to his music, but I know that he is a phenomenal performer. People really enjoy him. So what he is going to be doing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward will be interesting to see as well. I really enjoyed the Eternals. I know that there has to be people out there who also enjoy the Eternals. I just think that it got hate for not following the Marvel formula, but I would think that people would be interested in seeing projects that kind of break away from the Marvel formula. I think that's why people are enjoying things like The Boys and other non-Marvel or DC comic book properties. So I would have thought that people would have enjoyed the Eternals a lot more than it seems that they did. But unfortunately, I think people are a little more critical than they need to be of things. So that's just my opinion. I think that we have such a standard for Marvel that we cannot like things unless they are Infinity War or Endgame level good. And that's a little setting yourself up for failure. As much as an MCU fan as I am, we have to remember that the MCU was not perfect prior to Endgame. We had things like Iron Man 3, Thor, Dark World. There have been a few missteps along the way. Age of Ultron, in my opinion, was not good. I think it's the weakest out of all the Avengers movies. So, I mean, and that's just my opinion. If you like Thor, the Dark World, if you like Iron Man 3, that's perfectly fine. But for me, I think that we need to stop being a little we have to stop being so harsh towards movies and just enjoy them again. There's this huge problem with we are all becoming way too critical of movies. And again, this is not me defending the MCU. I think that they have to definitely improve a lot. There's a lot that they've been doing in the movie world and the TV world that has not worked, but just remember at the end of the day that these movies were meant to entertain, and maybe we should stop being a little so critical of them. But that's just me. Please let me know what you thought of the Eternals, if you liked it, or if you are amongst the type of people who disliked it. And if you disliked it, that's okay. I just want to know why you dislike it. um was it that you disliked it as a whole? Did you like the characters but maybe not like the story, and vice versa? So please make sure that you comment down below. If you're not already subscribed, please take a moment to do so. And if you have a moment, please check out the vlog that I did on this channel for New York Comic Con, as well as several of the interviews that were done by my colleague Mike Vaughn, such as interviewing the rock legend Dee Snider. That was very cool. So make sure you check that out. And until the next time, I will talk to you later. Bye.